welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast. For each week, we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade focused on student support and digital experiences. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Higher Ed Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Welcome, everyone, to another super special live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast here at the AI show at the ASU GSV Summit in beautiful San Diego. So we're here with somebody that I just always love talking to, always just gets me geeked out, energized, jazzed up about higher ed stuff. Brian, if you want to introduce yourself to everybody quickly and just talk about like what brings you to the show, what are you excited to see, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Hey, Dustin, great to be with you. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm from San Diego, so I feel like I kind of have to be here.
Right, it's like, why not? Yeah.
It's right down the street. But, you know, it's actually my first one, surprisingly. I've been in a number of roles where ASU GSV networks were relevant to my work, but just never made it out. I started my career in student affairs, did some work with universities directly in residence life and orientation, eventually found my way into consulting, worked with universities doing design in higher education, and that brought me out to San Diego. And eventually started working with Intuit. So I was doing some Fortune 500 work at learning and development, internal consulting for their L&D teams. And in the last year, I've gone out on my own. So my official role is as a principal consultant, design strategist for Learning Design, which is my design organization. I'm working with universities who are looking to improve their student experience. They're using design to make change on campus, and especially focused on this intersection and very consistent conversation around how universities maintain relevance in the future of work. So it's been exciting stuff, and I'm happy to be here surrounded by people that I think are working on a lot of the same stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know, I guess just to give folks like a good tangible example, I know with UC San Diego Design Lab is one of the sort of more prominent projects that you're working on. If you want to just explain that quickly, because I think that kind of like captures the essence of what you do very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Design Lab, for a little bit of context, has three parts. There's a education component where they're delivering credit-bearing courses on campus. There's a group that's doing faculty research, and then they have a third team called Studios. And essentially, that team is doing consulting work in the San Diego community in a variety of different ways. It could be stakeholders like the YMCA, which is the largest YMCA in the country. It could be the United Nations Foundation, or maybe even the local Parks and Rec department who's looking at creating a new park. And so these contracts come through UCSD. They've got a team of designers internally and faculty who do their research in design, but they often need practitioners. And so essentially on the consulting bench as a designer in residence for the Design Lab, doing specific work that is often about hearing from stakeholders, so going to community members in a particular area to hear about what they want, for instance, in a park. Come up with ideas and co-create with them about what might we do in that land to create something that meets their needs, and then to slowly test and iterate our way to bringing it to life in one way or another. So that's the work with the lab. I'm really excited to do today, or actually tomorrow. We're hosting an event through my other component of my role with UCSD Design Lab, which is the Educators Alliance. So this is a group of design educators from across the region who are focused on design education, either in their school, so making change in their schools using design, or in their work. So they're actually using design to teach curriculum and taking students through projects using the design thinking process. So we're going to get a group of them together, along with some of the innovators who are here for ASU GSV, and mix them all up on a rooftop and let them all connect. So excited to be doing that work here, and the opportunity to get to know a lot of the folks who are in town, as well as deepen the connections with folks that I work with every day.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I've realized is this event, like South by Southwest EDU and like EdTech Week and different things, like I've just found that I appreciate those opportunities to get folks from like all over the spectrum and the kind of ecosystem of education, different functional areas and everything, and just kind of throw everybody together, just these kind of random collisions or different sessions or, the happy hours, all this kind of stuff. Like, it is such a great opportunity to bring folks together that are doing similar work, or to like just get exposure to folks that just really wouldn't maybe get exposure to on a regular basis. Like, it just sort of like naturally happens here, where otherwise you'd be putting a lot of like deliberate effort into being like, where are the people that I don't like? I don't even know how to find them because I don't interact with them. So I love that you're kind of making space in your own way for those sort of conversations to happen. But sort of the big picture question here, I've always just had kind of an affinity for design thinking. I took some classes even way back in undergrad on it. From your point of view, can you explain a bit about like, how you're seeing like design thinking being sort of like uniquely kind of equipped to kind of navigate this moment in higher ed? Because I think it's something new for a lot of people, this sort of level of ambiguity, the turbulence, the sort of like constraints and all this kind of stuff. So like, how are you seeing that design thinking you feel like is kind of uniquely equipped to kind of deal with these sort of issues?
Yeah. So we're at the AI show. I'm going to take a moment to go off on a tangent and come right back to it.
Do it.
Interestingly, use generative AI to ask the question of the average age of a university in the United States. So I said, look at all the data for all the universities in the United States, look at their founding dates and say how old they are on average. Do you have like a like off the cuff guess?
Well, I think a lot of people always say, and this is like a very good way to like, I think, establish that like are hundreds of years old. So I would say like to split the difference, on average, they're probably like 150 years old.
Okay, you're like right in the ballpark. It told me like turn of the century basically is the average in the 1900, 125 years old.
All right, okay.
Which, I don't know, you could probably debate that. There are certainly ones that are much older and younger, but I think the point itself expresses the challenge that universities face. And that's just generally that as these big institutions that have been around for a long time, education wasn't designed around students. And it certainly wasn't designed with the student in mind. Like when you look at what was happening in 1900, okay, like McKinley was president. We were just going through the Industrial Revolution. Like we were starting to make electricity, right? Like the early phones in offices. So just like generally second Industrial Revolution, the environment that an institution was in and the type of world that they were preparing students for looked so different. And these systems are so deeply entrenched in the existing way of doing things. That's not to say they're 125 years old, but certainly they carry a lot of the baggage that comes with that much history. And so I would just say, universities are just complex groups of humans in a system that is obviously very demanding of them in a variety of different ways. And generally change is hard for humans. And so when I think about the benefits of design, they're twofold. One is that it helps us to focus on the stakeholders who are most important in the future of education that we want to create. And so for me, that sits in the area of students, employers, communities, right? These are the core stakeholders that we might focus our efforts on designing for. So you go talk to those groups and you find out what they need. And then you start to try to solve those problems. So that's the first part that jumps out to me. The second is that by its nature, design involves people and invites them into the process of solving problems together so that they ultimately become invested in that change. So it helps to alleviate some of that challenge and tension of how difficult it is from going to point A that is a difficult, fraught, challenging set of circumstances or complex web of how things are done to a future that you've had some investment in partially creating. So to me, those are the benefits. The last thing that I'll say on this that I feel like is really important is we are in higher ed, it's very common to look to others for what they're doing. I would say like there's this general culture of imitation. And it's usually under the guise of best practices, which isn't in itself a bad thing, but it sometimes takes a shortcut against the really important challenge that a university is facing and then how they explore, how they solve it in the unique context that they exist in. And so rather than taking a way another university solved a problem and replicating it on your campus. It's about interrogating the specific challenge that you're facing, engaging the stakeholders that have an influence on it, and then working with them to create the solution.
Yeah, and I think, you made sort of at the outset of your answer there, like, passing mention of AI, because I think that's in the mix, but not like the singular problem of it. Like, there's just a confluence of things happening, but like, AI is just sort of in the mix of, institutions sort of interfacing with how are they going to, integrate it into their workflows, their teaching and learning and everything else. So like,
Yes.
The idea of like everything that you're saying, design thinking and these sort of concepts and processes and everything can help just writ large with a, venerable organization to navigate better how to get from where they are to where they want to be, where they need to be. But then AI is a big sort of, specter and existential kind of thing, and we're here at the AI show. So how have you seen AI like augmenting your work, or as sort of the focus of like going through kind of a process? Like, just take it as you will, but I mean, certainly it's always great to see good tangible examples of how AI is augmenting work, certainly like with what you're doing. I'd be curious if that's the case, but if not, then just sort of generally, how are you sort of leveraging design thinking to help people navigate how they're going to utilize AI?
Yeah, well, I love what you said at the onset about the way that AI has sort of entered the conversation today. I think, one of the maybe challenges at the start is that it's a hot topic at the moment, and that dynamic of best practice is very much present in the decision making that's happening, I think, on campuses adopting AI without necessarily understanding what problem they're trying to solve. I think there's a need to stay relevant, which is fair, but in many cases it might mean adopting tools that are not actually addressing the underlying problem that you have and throwing an AI label on it, and that creating more problems later on. Or it actually impacting what is the core value proposition that institutions have to offer their students. It's like, what job is the student hiring your university for? And starting from that basis before deciding that AI is the right solution for it. So I come in with a critical lens, but not a Luddite, right? I use AI in my own work. It's everywhere, right? It's certainly making its way into design practice. I work regularly with researchers and teams at the design lab who are using AI for coding and understanding qualitative responses. So like, you go on, this is a way more tangible and perhaps relatable example, but like, you go on your Zoom, you have an AI tool that records your conversation and gives you a transcript. Now imagine that a designer has had 30 conversations with 30 different stakeholders, and I certainly can go through that and code that qualitative. I think my value is in there, and so I don't avoid that task or that element of the design process. But there are emerging tools that are entering the market that are really focused on how do you take this large data set of qualitative transcript, pull out themes, and spit out, here are the insights that came out of those conversations. Here's what AI interpreted as some of the key elements of those 30 interviews. So that's one. The second is actually on the creation side. So there's a tool that some researchers in the lab are creating now that is taking basically a kernel of an idea that you want to visualize and producing it in a way that helps to bring that idea to life so that it can be inspiration for designers who are going through the design process. And so, two kind of tangible examples with maybe a meta thought that I think we need to ask the critical question of what is AI doing for us? And I think design can be a partner and a tool for understanding the problem that we're trying to solve. But that's how it stands with me today.
No, and it makes a lot of sense because, just like a kind of tried and true way to evaluate, like, is AI the solution here, or like, do we want it to be, or maybe part of the way, like doing that sort of like work, design thinking and all these sort of, elements and everything being helpful in that work. But then like, that idea of like, okay, if we're going through this, how can AI help to like do the analysis or takeaways? And I even just with like podcasting, having that in my back pocket to now use, like when I have a transcript from just one singular podcast interview, it's like, just give me some like title options, like tell me what the episode is about, like, because it's like, that's what I always joke about it. And I feel like I probably said a bunch of times on here, but like, I've done so many episodes. It's like, I can't always come up with like a clever, witty little, grabby title, but
Yes.
like, it can just like give me like a bunch of options.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I want a piece of this, want a piece of that one, and whatever. So like just that, even like not being like tormented by the blank page kind of thing, just as somebody like creates a lot of content, but then even just like, it could be that starting point of like, oh, I have all this stuff to analyze. Can you give me some initial takeaways? And if it could be like, either affirming maybe what you would have guessed or giving you some like things that you didn't expect. And I don't know, like, because that could then guide where it's like, well, let me dig a little bit deeper. Let me like, why did it say this? Like, was it, because sometimes obviously with any of this stuff, it could be like, was it the prompt or was it like the data that was analyzing or pulling from, whatever, So I think that, yeah, it can be on two different folds of just like design thinking being kind of a good passenger and assistant and like guide to navigate how an institution would be bringing AI into the fold.
Right.
But then it could also be augmenting that work itself of doing the sort of the design thinking and everything. So it's very interesting.
Too, like the dynamic of calling customer service at your mobile provider, that experience sucks, and it's largely automated. And so it makes me wonder when institutions are thinking about how they implement AI to be a front line of offense of interaction for efficiency's sake. There is a tangible trade-off in that in that experience. And so I think it's really like, is this the experience that we want to create for our students and stakeholders? And is this the experience that they're looking for and expecting of our institution? And so it's like that push and pull and question, I feel like, is really important before like just pursuing that AI solution that certainly will create efficiency, but maybe is not the best. For me, in my personal work, I often think of AI as a tool that I use in low stakes but high output opportunities. And so it's like, when I'm writing a newsletter post, I'm every word. I made the joke last week that I did it with a robot, and I don't know if it landed or not. But
we don't get a lot of immediate response,
Yeah, but I will iterate on titles or event copy. I'm like, this is the event that I'm trying to put on. This is the style. This is the audience. This is some other stuff.
But you need to like be concise or whatever, because it's like,
make it sound snappy and fun and interesting, and highlight this element of it, and then it gives me 10 options, and I can pick and refine and improve on it from there. So I think I think you described it well as a passenger, and I think we have to be really cautious about the instances where we use it as more of that driver role, and just be thoughtful about it achieving the goal that we're intending.
Yep, absolutely. Well, as we're winding down, these are kind of the two questions. I'm curious for all the various, very different folks that we're having on with all the episodes we're doing for Higher Ed Geek. What is on the horizon for your work right now? Let's say over like the next year. Any interesting projects or just the things that you're maybe trying to think about, figure out? What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this summer. There are some really kind of fun things happening, both in San Diego and in other parts of my work. So every year I run this event called Service Jam, which is a design event that teaches the community design thinking, and they actually go out and interview people and create solutions. Super high energy and a lot of investment and interest. Through the connections that I've made through the Design Lab and with the Educators Alliance and some other big groups in the San Diego area, there's been some interest in like, how do we bring this maybe as a summer camp for youth? So working in the early seedlings of organizing some folks for maybe a high school design career camp, where we've got some industry involvement, some design thinking, and some doing and learning design. So that's one really interesting piece that I'm excited about. I've been kicking off some projects at the intersection of education and work, helping universities improve their experience in career development on campus. So I'll be sharing some of that in my newsletter. And then I actually launched, probably by the time this is out, a beta cohort for an EDUxDesign Fellowship, EDUxDesign. 8 weeks of learning and doing design virtually against a real problem on your campus. And so it's cohort-based. We'll work in ideally like pairs on each campus. I want to get at least 6 folks involved for this first go. And I sort of soft launched it like 2 or 3 days ago, and I've already got a handful of applications. So I'm really excited to see what will come of what that turns into, whether it's something that I offer regularly or it's a fun side hustle that helps to support universities who are trying to build, individuals who are trying to build their design shops. We'll see. But it's in beta, and I'll get some feedback on it.
Yeah, and that's great, because I think like events like this are great for sort of like getting inspiration, ideas, and different things like that. But I just don't ever see enough those opportunities to be like, I do have this thing that I'm trying to work on, and it's sort of a guided or structured place, like I said, like to build your design chops that you could take anywhere, whatever you do in the future. But it would be the idea of like, come with a thing that you're trying to figure out, because obviously that's going to be way more relevant and engaging versus us all doing these sort of theoretical, kind of practice things. It's like, no, this could be impactful, relevant, implementable, like whatever. But like, it would be the idea of like, some people, I'm sure they're like, oh yeah, I went to this conference, I got this great idea, I saw somebody talk about a thing that they did, I want to see if I can do it here or whatever else, like, but just trying to give people on whatever kind of frequency makes sense or whatever, those sort of opportunities, and then to even do it like, in like a cohort, like in community, like with other people, then also with like sort of, expert guidance and sort of, mentoring and stuff. So I think just those sort of opportunities, I don't see them enough. I see some people that are like, really on that, but obviously, there's like more than enough opportunities to get inspiration, but more opportunities to people like actually start trying to like figure things out and actually like implement them. So
yeah, I would much rather be a do leader than a thought leader. I've been enjoying the writing lately, but the projects where I'm active and in the work is much more fun for me. And I think about with the consulting work that I do right now, I'm one person working with a handful of clients, and that doesn't scale. And so the theory of change is we need design in education to make the changes to improve it in the way that are going to make it most effective. And so it was like, how do I do that? And it's like enable and empower and support and coach other people to do that on their campuses. So not to say that I'm a sole solution, but I certainly would love to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you were already like leading towards my final question here of like giving some like advice, some words of wisdom, calls to action. But I'll give you kind of the final word here to wrap everything up. What advice would you give to higher ed leaders right now?
Yeah, thought a lot about this question because education is in such a tumultuous moment right now. And I think about the leaders who are steadfast in challenging moments and what they do, what makes them different. And to me, where it overlaps with my background in design is, I think the best thing that you can do in tough moments is to be human. It's like, think about the people involved and act from a place of respect and appreciation, and knowing that things are really uncertain and that, they can be unnerving and scary. But in a strange way, it can also offer some unique windows of opportunity to force ourselves to think differently and act with purpose that we might not have had before. So I think it's stay human-centered, tough, and resilient.
Love it. Great advice. Great point to end on. Brian, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Always appreciate your perspective and talking to you, ways to connect with you and what you're working on, the show notes for the episode. But just good to see you. I'm glad that we were able to cross paths here, and we're hanging out tomorrow night. I mean, as of this present moment we're recording, we'll get to hang out. So I'm looking forward to that. But Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The Higher Ed Geek podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.